Hello, welcome to the channel. My name is Kent Weir. Today we're going to talk about some AI agent patterns, and in particular the routing pattern. And we're going to go ahead and implement that using Azure Logic Apps. Once again, if you do like this channel, like this content, likes are always welcome. Please go ahead and hit that like button. Also subscribe if you want to hear more about these topics going forward. Let's go. All right, so why this episode? And my plan is to build a series around this content, so do look for more of this. But I was recently chatting with a buddy, Stephen Thomas. So he's a Microsoft MVP, been doing integration for quite some time. If you aren't following him, go ahead and follow him on YouTube. I'll put a link to his content in the description of this video. But we've been exchanging a lot of ideas back and forth about AI. And in particular, he sent me another video that was referencing this patterns document by Anthropic. And these patterns are kind of interesting. And so I thought it'd be interesting to start taking a look at these different patterns and then try to implement those patterns using Azure Logic Apps and then go ahead and share that all with you. So we're going to start this series with the routing pattern, and then look for subsequent patterns in future videos. So one thing, I did talk a little bit about this last week in last week's video where I talk about the future of integration and does it involve agents. And what this article, which will also be found in the comments, talks about is that what are agents, and then also what are some of the differences between workflows and agents. And I think this is important, and I think it's kind of interesting. In my previous video, I talked about how integration and workflows are typically very premeditated in the sense that you've got like defined code paths, and I refer to it as like a train being on train tracks, where basically the train can really only go one direction, and that direction is dictated by the train tracks. And I think historically integrations have been built that way for good reason. It all comes down to predictability and consistency. Now, so that's when this definition, there's this sort of relationship between workflows and agents. And here Anthropic is saying that workflows are systems where LLMs and tools are orchestrated through predefined code paths. And I would agree with that 100%. And I sort of have this call out saying that's deterministic execution. And I think that lends itself to some of the things I've previously said. Now, if we think about agents, they are systems where LLMs dynamically direct their own processes and tool usage, maintaining control however they accomplish the tasks. And I would say or argue that this is an example of non-deterministic execution. And I think this is where, I called it kind of the secret sauce in the previous video, is how this orchestration takes place between goals, objectives, and the tools. And so today we're going to talk about this routing pattern, and that is going to be more of the workflow flavor. And that's okay. I think that's the big thing here is don't follow a trend for the sake of following a trend. Adopt the right approach that addresses the business outcome. You may have situations where you want, to have a deterministic route, and that's fine. I think my goal with all of this is just to share use cases, patterns as an education vehicle. And then it allows you to sort of use the right pattern for the right scenario. And, at the end of the day, it's all about getting the right business outcome. So this is the routing pattern. And this is sort of an example of workflow where we've got, maybe let's call it intelligent workflow. And in this case, we've got an input that is classified and that directs it to a specialized follow-up task. So this workflow allows for separation of concerns and building more specialized prompts. Without this workflow, optimizing for one kind of input can hurt performance on other outputs. And so they give some guidance here on when to use this particular pattern, this workflow. And it talks about routing works well for complex tasks where there are distinct categories that are better handled separately. And an example of this is around customer service queries, general questions, refund requests, technical support, etc. And so that's exactly what we're going to go ahead and do here. So I've created this sort of conceptual view of what I'm going to go ahead and build. So I've got an email. It's going to be a customer support related email. It comes in from my customer. And then we're going to ask the LLM. In this case, we've got a model that's provided by Azure OpenAI. And we're going to use the LLM to categorize or classify this particular input. Now, this input's the email message. And we have these three categories that we want it to be broken down into. One for order lookup, one for shipping, and the other is kind of a catch-all called other. And so what I'm going to show you here is that how we can sort of use routing and large language models to be able to go ahead and detect when we have an order status lookup request, how we can actually use a large language model to do some intelligent parsing, and then we're going to actually plug in a tool. Now, in this case, the tool or the plugin is a workflow. So these are concepts that go hand in hand. So let's go ahead, let's dive into a demo, and I'll show you exactly how this works. All right, so my solution includes three workflows. The first workflow, I'm calling it just customer service router, and I'm calling this an on-ramp. So the idea is we get an email inbound. We're looking for a specific subject filter called customer service. And then what we're going to go ahead and do is use that classifier or that, to categorize the input. So we're going to create a prompt and we're going to use GPT 4.0, and this is going to be Azure OpenAI. We're going to use the built-in Azure OpenAI connector. And we're going to have our two different messages here. So we've got a user message or prompt, and we're going to ask to determine the nature of this customer service request. And then we're going to have a system role. And this is where we can go ahead and apply any sort of additional rules, governance, and also additional information that we want to include in this. So here we're going to say you're an AI assistant that helps automate and route customer service requests. Your job is to classify the inbound email, now this is the body that we pass in, and determine this request is related to order lookup, shipping options, or other. Now we can provide sort of the governance, right, or additional requirements. Your response should return the following words only. Order if it is related to order lookup, shipping if related to shipping options, or other if there isn't a match. And so that's great. So it's going to output a single word. The word is then going to allow us to do a switch on, and then we can detect whether it's related to order lookup, shipping, or if it's another request. Now, I've only implemented the order side here just for the sake of sort of time. You'll get the point, and you can sort of invoke shipping and other use cases as well. But what I am implying here is I've got a third workflow where I want to go ahead and invoke a human in the loop process. So what this means is if I do get a shipping inquiry, say shipping cost, do you ship here, do you ship there, then a human's going to go ahead and get involved. Now, as we get more comfortable with the solution, naturally we can build automated workflows to go address those particular use cases, but then we've got this catch-all, which we probably do want a human to go ahead and respond. But as we get more confident in the solution, we can automate more and take less and less of the burden off the individual users. Now, so let's talk about orders. So at this point, we've detected it's an order, and we're going to go down this path, and we're going to then go ahead and call a large language model once again. Now, I want to be able to look up this particular order from the actual CRM. So I need to get an order number in order to effectively do that. So we've got another prompt, and we're going to say, provide the order number from this text. And then that's a user prompt. And then we've got our system message here. And we're saying you are an AI assistant that helps automate and route customer service requests. We have determined that the following email is related to order lookup. And we include the original body. From this email, can you extract the order number? This value should be 5 digits long and begin with a 1. If you're unable to return the order number, return 99999. Only a 5-digit number should be returned, no additional text. So this is going to allow us to now leverage that in a workflow so that we can go ahead and use a tool to go ahead and do this particular lookup. And so that's what we're going to go ahead and do here. We're going to invoke this tool. Now, in this case, I'm just using sort of this agentic orchestration sort of language, but we're going to invoke a tool. In this case, it's another workflow called order lookup. As part of that input, we've got a topic, which means like, is it order, is it shipping, is it, other? Who the email's from, the original email message body, we've got an order number, and we've got a subject. So if we flip over to this workflow, that's where we go and expose these different properties. We then want to list rows. So we're going to connect to our, in this case, it's Dataverse, our CRM, and we're going to look for any records from our orders table with this particular order number. And now this is kind of bonus in my mind, right? So I can go ahead and retrieve the message body from the list rows action, that's for sure. I can now manually construct an email using that data, and I can format it as I see fit. But I thought, hey, this would be interesting to see how AI would take care of this for me. So what I did is I said, okay, I'm going to create a user prompt, format an email for a customer, and then my system message is, you are an AI assistant that helps automate and complete customer service requests. In this case, you've been asked to respond to an order lookup. Here's the response from our order system. So this is going to get basically, information from our table. So this is the table itself. So we got ship to, and we've got an order number, and we've got a customer name, and we've got an order status and things like that, right? So we're going to basically send that record across. And now please construct a professional email that addresses the customer by their first name and includes the order number, ship to address, the order total, and the order status. Close the email text with a professional closing and indicate the email is coming from the Fourth Coffee customer service team. Now you'll notice here, I've got a couple spelling mistakes. I noticed one here after the fact. I also noticed this, but the AI doesn't care. And then through some testing, I had to add a couple additional constraints. What the AI was doing was like leaving room for your contact information. So it was kind of assuming that maybe you're using, say, ChatGPT, and you're asking it to construct an email body, including this information. So it kind of creates a placeholder. So now I give it instructions, do not include any trailing placeholders. And then the other thing I said is go ahead and format the email using HTML so I can properly send this using this action. But then what it was doing was adding these tags. So I just say, don't include those tags. And you'll see it actually works pretty good. So there we'll go ahead and send the email back. All we're going to do is include the body from the AI. And then here we're just going to return back to our on-ramp. So let's go ahead and let's send in our first email here. Okay, so here's an email that I previously sent. Now let's go ahead and let's change this up just so there's no smoke and mirrors. Let's just add additional things and we'll just get this right. Okay, so let's now go ahead and send this in. And I'm just going to pause the recording for just one moment. This will take kind of 30 seconds, a minute to process. Okay, so that's completed. So let's go ahead and look at the run history now. Okay, so the email comes in. And here we can see, well, it's wrapped in HTML. But, take my word for it. This was the email that was sent in. Okay, so we go ahead and we pass it, over to AI, and in this case it also includes all the HTML markup, and it's pretty cool because it's able to ignore all of that stuff. And so here, let's see what the output is. So it is saying that the output is order. So it's determined that this is related to order, so that's cool. We hit our switch statement, we then come down, and we now want to go ahead and extract the order number from this, right? So here we can go ahead and see that we've got the number that was sure enough, part of that message body. So no additional rules were implied. What you see is what you get from that perspective. Now let's head over to our tool and we'll look this up. Okay, sorry, that's the previous one. So let's just do a refresh. All right, so here we can see, 1004. We go ahead and we do a request. We can see basically this is the whole payload, all of the columns, the system, junk, everything. And then what we can do is basically send this over to our AI model, and it's going to go ahead and construct a response for us. Now, that's not the greatest way to look at this, so let's take a look at our email. We'll go over to the inbox, and sure enough, here it is, like 1004. So we've got some reasonable formatting here. Basically, below are the details for your order. And have any questions, here you go. So AI was able to go ahead and do a nice job of this. And obviously you would want to test this, and for a while you could even do human in the loop and say, hey, does this look good? So we're not leaking out bad data. But what you obviously do is when you construct your prompts, that's where you go ahead and make sure you provide explicit rules so that you don't send things that you shouldn't be sending out to the customer itself. So that's kind of the core happy path. Now let's just take a look, and let's sort of add some variety here as well. So let's head over to our sent messages, and here. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. So this is going to be related to shipping. So we'll just clean this up. Let's just modify this because I have run this at work, but just to sort of show some variety. Okay, so let's go and now send this in, and then let's do this last one as well. Just while we're in the email client itself here. So in this case, we're just going to make up something random, right? So I'm an influencer. I've got 21 million followers on TikTok, and I'm interested in partnership opportunities. Can we get on a call to further discuss? So let's go ahead. Let's send that over as well. So I'll pause this and then we'll go take a look at the run history. Okay, so let's take a look. This should be the shipping inquiry, right? So once again, we're going to do some routing. We're going to categorize the email. We're going to pass that in. We can see the output is shipping, and then we can go ahead and invoke the human in the loop. So I haven't implemented that part, but you get the idea. Now, if we head back to the run history, let's take a look at this last one. And once again, we're going to route. We're going to classify this. It's going to be classified as other, and we're going to go down and call this particular process. So naturally, as you evolve your scenarios, you basically just change your prompt. And this starts to speak a little bit of that like non-deterministic piece where if you can, go ahead and assemble tools, and these tools can be dynamically called, which I'm not really showing here, but I'm just trying to paint the picture. That allows in the future for a far more flexibility because we can use AI to go ahead and do things like categorization, which, allows us to intelligently interpret these. Kind of think of it, the equivalent of this is a human that's looking at a mailbox going, oh, okay, I've read this email. This is related to billing. I'm going to go send it over to Sally. Oh, okay, this is related to operations. I'm going to go send this over to Joe. This is related to finance. I'm going to go send this over to that team. Think of it that way, but we're just using AI as a way to be able to route that information intelligently. And what's pretty cool about this, I have not imposed any schemas. I have not imposed any structure. There's no regular expressions in this. This is all just AI being able to interpret this data. So hopefully this, spark some ideas. Once again, like AI continues to emerge. You might not be ready for it, and that's okay. But I think it's important to be exploring these technologies because without question, they are the future. They are powerful. And as integrators or automators, we do, this is kind of going to change the way we build solutions. We're still needed, so you don't be worried about that. But I think the way you build the solution will be quite different. So hopefully that's interesting. Do look for another pattern. Let's just take a look. I think the next pattern I was going to look at is this evaluator optimizer. And I think that's kind of a cool pattern here as well. And this is, people talk about AI and can you trust AI? So this is what allows you to go ahead and sort of verify using AI that the AI did the right thing. And you can even do that with different models if you want, which is kind of interesting as well. But we'll leave that there for now. And I look forward to providing more content on this in the future. Take care.